What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team.
Joe Rogan, so here I am.
Kyle, what's up, Beast?
I'm doing great so far. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but I'm not letting that stop me right now. I'm here, right?
That's right. That's right. And MFG, what's up, my friend?
Oh, it's another day living the dream, boy.
Right. So MFG, if you're down for it, why don't you show the dudes what you're working on? We always want to showcase projects and trophies that guys have earned and or are working on earning. What do you got going on, dude?
Yeah, so right now we've got a couple of commercial projects, but the big thing we're working on is this massive sculpture here. So you can see these aluminum spires that are wrapping around, but they're gonna end up going on that 17-foot high post right there. So what we're doing is it is a 17-foot high moving kinetic sculpture for the city of Charlotte that we were fortunate enough to get a grant to do. So it's an absolute dream come true to be able to marry the skills of, you know, managing your time and yourself and being disciplined to get all these projects done, but also from the creative aspect to have to be able to keep your shit together when you have to solve complex problems. Because fortunately, the other gentleman that I work with is he's always willing to take on a project where we don't know how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We figure it out, and it's really such a divorce from the corporate structure of things, because we could be more profitable and make more money right now focusing on production stuff, but it's so exciting to be part of something kind of pushing the limits, much like this group, you know?
Hell yeah, absolutely. And then, so where, because I'm a knuckle dragging ape when it comes to this stuff. So you're creating this big structure, and then where are you gonna put it?
Yeah, so it's going at a location that's already been determined. It's actually I think it's an urban development grant that we got from the city. Yeah, so we did some early this year. We did some for like a kind of rundown part of the city. We did these giant planters that wrapped like essentially living pillars. So we did that for the community, and then we're doing these as well. So that kind of it's pretty rad, man. There's and it's one of the beautiful things about being here in a larger metro area. As long as granted, it's a huge change for me from being literally on a dirt road in the woods of Maine, you know, surrounded by peace, to now I'm like in a city, but there's so much more space for art and so many more opportunities here.
Oh yeah, I've recently taken a few trips to New York City, and just walking around and noticing how much the atmosphere changes when you have these really inspiring art pieces around you. Like MFG, have you ever walked the High Line in New York City?
I haven't.
Dude, I think you would love it. Ray and I recently did it, and you basically, it was an old broken down railroad that they turned into a walkway that is just littered with really awesome, unique, not only buildings, but then also art pieces. Ray, you probably know obviously way more about than I do. What's one or two art pieces that are there? Either they know by name or at least know by description.
Well, my understanding is that it's a rotating cast, so I don't believe there are any permanent sculptures.
That's pretty cool.
So the High Line is a rail line elevated that used to come into the meatpacking district, and collect the meat and bring it out to the rest of the city, state, country. And once the advent of trucking and refrigerated trucking, I suppose, made that so much easier, this elevated rail line was just kind of like fell into disrepair. And so now they've turned into a park. They've added stairs to get up there, and it's all kinds of like trees and shrubs and stuff. And then the Friends of the High Line is the foundation that commissions sculptors to build pieces, and they're up there for a year maybe, and then they, like let's say there's 20 or 25 different sculptures that are up there each for a year, and then they get replaced with something else. So it gives people a reason to go back, I suppose.
It's crazy inspiring. Like you're walking down, I don't know, Ray, a mile or two, something like that, and you're just immersed in all of these visuals of you have multi-billion-dollar buildings right next to you, commercial and apartment buildings, and then you have the Hudson River right there, and then you have, at the end of it, you have Hudson Yards, and you have the vessel, just this enormous art piece, and then along the way you have these sculptures. I mean, I guess just organically here, the theme maybe of today is how do you immerse yourself in inspiration so that you can be motivated and see like the heights that humans have reached, and perhaps that, and men have reached, and perhaps that you could push even further. MFG, where do you go for inspiration?
I mean, I enjoy making things hard. I find that to be inspiring in itself. You know what I mean? Even just choosing to like lately I've decided that I'm no longer going to heat the van at night. So it's like
just so everybody knows. So what he said is he's no longer going to heat the van that he lives in. For anybody who's unfamiliar with the MFG saga. So okay, let's hear more.
Yeah, so because when you realize that the things around you, like when you start to parse away what you actually do and don't need, like it's more comfortable with heat, but I'm not getting frostbite when it's cold. You know what I mean? I can just sleep under the blankets, Fortunately, I got a 90-pound pit bull that keeps me pretty warm. But when you start to parse those things away and then you revisit your life with the same lens, and it's like, where are the things that I can, I heard somebody say it years ago, but it's like addition by subtraction. So it's not about what I need to add to my life to be inspired, but what are the things that I can remove from my life? And some of those things are just my own, like buying into my own beliefs. You know what I mean? Like if I can sleep in a van, if I can, I mean, even my shop isn't heated. So it's like, I'm just cold all the time in the winter. But if I can do that, then, what else can I go without? You know what I mean? And I've also, it's getting close to summertime, so I've started to do a little bit of a cut as well. So it's another kind of great exercise for me is when I get real tight with my diet and just only eat one meal a day, like no snacks, no nothing, and just keep it super, super clean, like, black coffee, water, and beef right now. And that's just it, but when you see that, it's like, okay, so I'm capable of so much more in the rest of my life. If I can focus this discipline on this one specific thing and do that, then for me that kind of it builds enough self-worth or creates a new narrative internally, that just allows me to view the world in, my own self-imposed positive delusion. You know what I mean? And to see the beauty in all things and see the opportunities in every situation, kind of regardless of circumstances, which has been an interesting side effect of imposing more self-discipline lately.
Well, what comes up for me when you say that is how imprecise we are with defining our wants versus our needs. Now in some cases, I think that when you label something as a need, it can actually be really helpful because it can inspire even more action. I also think in other cases, being precise and defining whether or not you really do need that thing. Because I think oftentimes we label things with, I need this. And it's like, well, call MFG and he'll tell you how much you actually need because he's really testing those boundaries now. Apparently he doesn't need to be warm. So Kyle, what's your perspective? And also on the trail end of that question, what inspires you or where do you go to be inspired?
Yeah, I mean, I can't top not having heat, so to speak. Here I am with, a sweater and I have my heater on. So that's a win for MFG. But in regards to what I do and to be kind of creatively inspired in a sense, and to reconnect with my roots, I kind of go back to what got me inspired in the first place, whether that be, taking my time to learn. For example, I play multiple instruments, and there's times where I have like flows into, creating and developing and just kind of playing music and listening to music. But also at the same time, there's times where I like, get this music out. I don't want to listen to it no more kind of thing. But in regards to kind of strip down to where you kind of, how you fell in love with that thing, or how you fell in love with that type of creativity, or how you got inspired in the first place, going back to those roots is what I usually do. So that's kind of like going into the shower, kind of rethinking everything, sitting down with myself and kind of like in an empty room, no devices on, and kind of just reflecting, meditating a little bit. And then to get really, back on track and inspired and try to remove that creative block, I go ahead and just start doing something creative, whether that be recording, photography, writing things down that come to mind as ideas for later on, but also just kind of reimagining how it would be to be creative in that moment, in that sense. And yeah, basically that's how I get re-inspired, and I just kind of have that drive and that self-discipline to, I know we say find the spark, light the spark kind of thing, but I'm always the person to just get the wood and just keep sparking it, and get the Kindle, burn it, and just keep it going kind of thing.
Yeah, I wonder if, as I'm listening to both you and MFG talk, I think oftentimes, actually, if not almost every time, the word creative is hijacked by some sort of mystical, you have to be 100% artistic and it has to be top 1 out of 10 million pieces, versus the act of creating, of turning something into something else that didn't exist prior, or at least you didn't create prior. I wonder if there's so much resistance for people creating, so they just consume all the time because there's such a high watermark or high standards for this word creating. MFG, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think everybody kind of, that's one thing that I find interesting when people hear what I do for work. Their first thing is, oh, I could never do that. How do you possibly do that? And it's like, well, I didn't start doing it well, you know what I mean? But yeah, just fine. And also too, for me, there's a lot of times where here in the shop, there are things that aren't like super passion projects, you know what I mean? But to approach that with the same degree of enthusiasm and vigor that you have when you're working on like a one-off piece, it's going to be super cool. For me, I remind myself that everything feeds everything, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. How you show up in one place is where you show up everywhere else. So, when it comes to, like today, I'm just milling away, cutting up stock, boring things. But, when you make a decision to make that a creative act, find a way to creatively get it done faster. You know what I mean? Like just finding ways to inject creativity into daily life. It's not, because the more creative that I am, the less that I have a desire to consume. And don't get me wrong, I think to be entertaining, you have to go out and be entertained. There's certainly a place for that, but it's another thing altogether when it's so easy in this day and age to fall into the malaise of consumption. You know what I mean? Even as guilty as I am, it's easy to listen to podcasts under the guise of like, oh, I'm learning something, right? This is productive. Oh, let me listen to Huberman another fucking time, right? And it's like, that's great, but at some point, it's almost fucking masturbatory. You know what I mean? It's where it's like, are we actually learning anything? Or are we just appeasing ourselves by feeling like we're being, productive, and that's, for me, just pick something up and do it. Create something, even if it's small, rearrange your space. You know what I mean? Like put something up on the fucking wall. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this big monumental thing. You don't have to like sit down and meditate for 3 hours to, I don't know. Lots of people enjoy even the creative aspect. It's still the sounds of like adult coloring books. That's pretty meditative and rewarding. You know what I mean? Like, and when you start to feed that creativity, it opens up other doors. I think that it's one thing that we don't put enough priority on, as a culture. And I think that all of us can learn from that, because at the times when I've been hyper productive and success driven and very financially doing well, that creative void haunts me.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode. Ray, what
about you, Wes? How do you find creation in your life?
So I legitimately love creating systems, creating spreadsheets. I love the science of creation and hoping one day that it turns into art. Like, I don't think about the art piece at all. But when I walk out into my office and now I see Kyle there and I see a bunch of people coming in and out for our meetings, and or I see a family who sends their kids to college, or they buy that new house that they've wanted by the beach, or whatever it is, or when a portfolio crosses a certain amount of money. For me, that is just so rewarding, because I feel like I had a piece of the puzzle that I could like insert and create to a certain extent. That for me is it, man.
Which is an art in itself. I mean, the ability to streamline operations, to be able to identify shortfalls, to make a sales method, especially in what you're doing, where it's such a vast marketplace. That is, I mean, because I love optimization as well. That's the art of optimization, right?
Yeah, and MFG, I think you'd be at least somewhat semi-satisfied with our office space here. And Ray, when you're in LA, we gotta take you by here. But being able to create a physical space that has intentionality and aesthetics in mind, for me has been incredibly rewarding. We're like, we probably have another like month or two to go till it's like all polished up, but it finally feels like it's intentional and I want to be here. Versus Ray knows, before my office was like a jail cell. I almost wore a badge of honor, because like, I don't need to look outside. I'm not a sissy, but now it's like, oh, hey, I really want to be here. Maybe others want to be here too.
So what an interesting opportunity, though, because you spent a lot more money to build out your office in an aesthetic pleasing fashion. You know what I mean? That's not cheap, especially when it comes to commercial grade stuff. That's a big investment for something that on paper, the bottom line, it's not quantifiable, but it changes the culture of your office when you have a space that people take pride in and they want to be there and it feels, productive. That's huge, man. That's a big move for you, Wes.
We have an espresso machine, MFG. You know what an espresso machine? I didn't even know what that was. Yeah. And then I think Ray was the one who told me that was actually still a rookie move. But yeah, man, I'd be like, 5 years ago, I would have told you that all of this stuff is for people who can afford to waste their time. That would have been my honest opinion. It's like, hey, all these philosophizers out here, who can just sit around and talk all day and look at art, tell them to get back to work, tell those trust fund kids to get back to work. Like that was my honest mindset back in the day, not too long ago. And now I actually see it the exact opposite. And what changed for me was I read the book Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, and he talked about that the majority of human action is not action. It's actually more precisely reaction to your environmental stimulus. So, and then he suggested there, how about you build your environment to be that much more motivating and, how would you say it, intrinsically directional. It's like you don't go to the gym and take a nap. You walk into the gym and the environment implies so strongly what to do that you very much do something that the environment's telling you to do. You do some form of exercise. But I had all of these muddied gray spaces that were just so loosely defined that you could take a nap there, or you could lift up some dumbbells and do a workout. Right? It was just too widespread of a narrative. And then once I started defining that a little better in a lot of areas of my life, especially from a spatial and environment perspective, a lot of things changed for me.
So what has been the feedback you've gotten? Because you have a few employees in the office, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. We've got one right here, Kyle. We just hired Kyle. Kyle, what's your honest feelings? And I promise I won't fire you. What are your honest feelings about the office environment?
As soon as I entered it, it really felt welcoming, as if I want to be here, stay here. And then after hearing all the other blueprints in the sense, and I was like, wow, there's a lot that's gonna be good here.
Yeah, we're gonna do MFG. We're gonna do something like, I'm trying to create create a vibe of a combination of almost like, well, let's say like an upscale WeWork. So imagine like an upscale home mixed with a wealth management firm, mixed with like a co-work, like a WeWorking space. So our next thing that we're going to build out, we have in my opinion, we have a phenomenal view of like mountain ranges and so on off in the distance. And then you also have, sort of a small city, the city of Irvine, California. So these skyscrapers, it's not Manhattan level skyscrapers, but these cool skyscrapers over on the left-hand side. But anyway, there's just this space right now that has that beautiful view, and it, ceiling, the windows coming down about halfway to the ground. So we're going to fill that space with like a bar top height, table with some stools. So so that way we can take advantage of that work, and it's a little bit more of an inspiring space. So we'll have to have you and your dog over here sometime, and you can grade it.
Hell yeah, man! We'll have to get you a mini Atlas Shrug sculpture.
Oh, dude, yeah, that thing. I think I showed you guys.
Actually, Wes, just send me some of your contest photos, and we'll model it after you with the world on your back. How would that be?
Yeah, there you go. I like that. I like that idea, man. Ray, I gotta run out of the office real quick. I'll be right back. But Ray, what's your perspective on this discussion?
Well, I know that we talk about Jordan Peterson aplenty here, and one of his rules, not from 12 Rules for Life, but from his second volume, Beyond Order, he urges us to adopt this rule, and I'll just read a few lines. Try to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. He explains what difference this can make in your life. According to Peterson, beauty is vital because it connects us to the sense of wonder and mystery that we felt as children. Without making room for beauty, we can lose touch with the mystery of life and the wonder all around us. As children, we have no problem connecting to beauty. We see the world through fresh eyes. We can feel wonder everywhere. But with time, Peterson says, we lose the ability to perceive the wondrousness of the world. Now, I agree with that. And we've talked about this many times, Wes, that I would expand the definition of beauty in art to include like complexity and tension. For example, this artwork here by Muna Malik, it might be too muddy for some people, but it has a tension and a complexity between the hot colors and the cold colors that I also think it has beauty. But so in terms of my definition of art, I would include complexity and tension, because like, for example, a tree or something top heavy or something cantilevered in nature, it's not only the beauty thereof, but it's like also the complexity. And no one would argue with like a view of the water or a view that gives you a beautiful sunset through the window, or a view of nature as kind of therapeutic, right? And so I think what Jordan Peterson's saying is, even in the built environment indoors, we can achieve a similar therapeutic benefit if we make, like as he says, try to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible, or try to make every room in your home as beautiful as possible. Another way you can do it through art is that you can have an autobiographical art collection that kind of tells a story of your life, your journey through art. For example, this thing that I've got framed over here, I think it was this work of art here. It was only $25 or $50, but it was a special edition that an artist made at an art fair, and I got it framed. The frame cost more than the art, but I look at that and I'm reminded of my journey, right? So a $50 work of art kind of like, it tells me the story of my journey. And then another part of like creating inspiration and beauty in your life is through cultivating relationships. For example, the artwork that MFG made for you that hangs in either your home or your office, Wes. Like you look at that and you're inspired by your work of art, but also it pings that part of your brain that what a badass you think MFG is, how inspiring he is to you, how you met him through this men's team. And so like all those kind of like pleasure centers or whatever get stimulated in your brain when you see that artwork, right?
Yep.
Similarly for me, so that's cultivating relationships as part of how you create beauty and inspiration in the objects around you. And so for me, we've got a $6,000 work of art here. We've got a $50 work of art here. And they both inspire me and give me a sense of beauty. In my hand here, I've got, a package I got from an artist. I bought an artwork from her maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and she asked me for my home address, and because she wanted to send something. And what it is postcards of some of her artwork.
That's cool.
And and it's like, now again, these things don't cost anything. They're just postcards. But I'm going to get them framed or something because they're from a proper artist. It's an artist that I have a relationship with, a super cool chick named Mariah Robertson. And it tells the story of my journey, right? So cultivating relationships and it is part of the recipe for creating beauty and inspiration. Sure, you can just go on Amazon and just look up what's the top-rated coffee table and just click on that and send it. Or you can, or top-rated print at IKEA that costs $20 and just get that. Or you can cultivate relationships and have objects around you that have that kind of added meaning. Go ahead.
Well, Ray, let me ask you this. Is there any one or two spots where you can go and it almost immediately, or at least over the course of a day or something, completely recharges your emotional batteries and inspires you, where you come back more motivated than when you left?
Yeah, man. It's just like, just to channel MFG, just walking anywhere, like now if I was navigating, like I wouldn't walk into a subway station at rush hour and like trying to but like if I walk outdoors, have my eyes on the horizon, just naturally, look around, look in people's homes, look in their gardens, look at the trees, look at a hawk flying by. Just the act of walking outside for 10 or 15 minutes always recharges my batteries. If my wife or, another close person to me is having a meltdown, I basically march them at gunpoint outside and force them to do a 15-minute walk around the neighborhood. And there's never been an occasion where that hasn't been the kind of medicine that is required.
Yeah. I find that as I've gotten more into interior design, restaurants have just been incredibly inspiring to me. Before, it just all used to melt into the background and be white noise as I was just like searching for calories. But now I go into certain restaurants like, wow, interesting. Why did they use that fixture? Why did they put that sort of design on the wall? Why do they use this tone of lighting? By the way, lighting, I feel like I've just discovered it. It's unbelievable. The difference that you can make a room from just using a different type of light bulb. And don't even get me started on light fixtures. This has just been a wild ride for me as a 37-year-old male.
And boys, you want to always go with yellow light, which is also known as warm light, not blue light, which is also known as cold light. So like LED lights these days, like the most modern lights in a bus or on a street lamp are all this kind of bright white, kind of blue whites, and there's nothing sexy about that. When you open the door to your apartment and bring a woman in for dinner, and it looks like she's getting her driver's license renewed, at the DMV.
Don't even get me started on color temperature, Wes.
Yeah, man, you want warm yellow light. Now, like the light bulb behind Wes, that kind of Edison bulb is the kind of casual term for it. That is the most extreme version of a yellow, warm light. You don't have to look like a time traveler or whatever, like Wes is trying to go for here. But you can get regular looking light bulbs with the yellow lights. If you take one piece of advice away from this men's group, let that be it.
Well, and Patty P in the comments is saying something that I've also recently discovered, which is adding sound to the environment. Now when Kyle and I are doing some work on actually Rhomas social media channels, when we turn the ambient sound off, I'm like, oh, this is just much less textured. It's much more boring. But if you put on some sort of lo-fi or background cafe jazz instrumental or something like that, it's crazy how it transforms the space. So when you add art, when you add cleanliness, when you add order and the right amount of chaos, and then when you add background beautiful noise and lighting, it's just incredible what it does to a space.
And Wes,
it's
I would say,
isn't it,
sorry, just one little item, Mike. I don't know about adding chaos. Like, I think adding personal touches is how I would argue it. So, like, because I'm in the art, even though I'm in the art business, I don't want my home to look like an art gallery, right? Because, like I said, because I'm going to have little personal items that are not art that I got at a gallery, right, that are just part of that create meaning for me. MFG, what do you think of that? Like, rather than order and chaos, order and chaos versus like order and personal touches.
I think personal touches are great. I think it's especially when you're creating a space that's going to be your little safe haven to operate from. You know what I mean? Like, you have reminders so that when you see something, it triggers something in you. I mean, I think about Wes's phone. You know what I mean? The wake up screen on his phone. And yeah, so when you have the personal touches, I wanted to say with music as well, it creates an interesting additional layer of shared connection with people in the same space that it doesn't exist in the absence of music. Because especially in this day and age, it seems like if there's not something in the background, then I'm as guilty as anyone else. I'll have earbuds in, you know what I mean? And then you're secluded from those around you. But when you have a shared space and you have music that is inspiring and whatever the tone of it is, but it also creates an additional layer now where you're now sharing that space with people where you were previously kind of segregated.
Yeah. On occasion, Kyle and I will break out into tribal dance depending on the music. But it's this theme of filling the space. So in dance, they call it, I think they call it filling. Yeah, maybe even filling the music. Yeah. So there's a massive difference between when you learn salsa and you're just learning where to place your feet. Like, and you'd be technically correct. Okay, step here on one, here on two, blah, 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 et cetera. Versus filling the music. There's a big difference between somebody who's just doing the steps versus somebody who's moving their whole body in the musical space. And I'm now finding that to be true in physical spaces. When you walk into a space, what's the lighting look like? What's the art look like? Is the room filled with music? Also, here's the other thing. I feel like I'm being reborn again. Scent. So I've recently come across essential oils over the last about year and a half. And man, when you hit the right combination of essential oils, it's just unbelievable. Like, if you walk into the Westin Hotel and you pay attention to all of these different things that we're saying, but you walk into the Westin Hotel, it smells a certain way. And apparently it's a whole industry that has a whole bunch of research behind it. And what the Westin uses is a combination of white tea with some other mixtures that I forget at the moment. But when you walk into a space and it smells good, and if you don't believe me, just make the opposite be true. Walk into a great space that smells like shit. see how it
Hold on.
impacts.
You know what I remember the most, and I'm not sure if this will ring
Yeah.
true with you guys, but who remembers Abercrombie and Fitch stores in the mall?
Oh yeah.
You remember that they would spray that fucking cologne in there, heavy.
Yep.
Like you would walk by and it would waft out. They were creating a whole space with lighting, the olfactory senses, everything.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, scent. I can't believe I'm just thinking of this now, this deep into the conversation. Scent has been an enormous part to where I've put it in my home, put certain scents in my home. And I would say close to 100% of people who walk into my home, that's the first thing that they say is, oh my gosh, where did you get that? It's like, what is that scent? Yeah. So
That's
I don't know if you guys have experimented with that, man, but it is a huge needle mover for me psychologically and emotionally every day when I come into the office and now at my house. I haven't figured out how to crack the code on the car because I have put some, what are those, like reed sticks with oil in there. But the car still, I need to upgrade the scent of the car. Ray, what were you going to say, Bob?
Well, we're unknowingly we're cycling through the five senses, right? So the visual, we started off the Well, I mean, we started off
with
with
dumb male conversation, like
yeah, we started off with inspiration, but then we got to beauty, visual, right? Then we went to scent, right? Like using room diffusers or whatever to get a nice smell in there. What are some of the other? And then we talked about music, right?
Yep.
The sound, and then I suppose touch would be right. That would be raising the game again.
Well, and so, apparently texture is a really big thing in interior design. And we know what it's like, especially you start paying attention to this stuff. When something looks really good, then you go to pick it up and you're like, oh, this is just a hollow version of that thing. And it just decreases the impact of it a little bit.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I can say at least my beautiful space is my room, and I try to pimp it out. I even made this own drawing canvas myself.
Oh, nice, man.
Digitally on Photoshop.
Yeah. And Kyle, walk us through the emotions. As silly as it sounds, like what does that private space mean for you? And why is it important that you keep it the way you have it?
Yeah, I mean, I try to find, in a sense, to make my room a way of inspiring, whether that be creatively or having a place where, I can put it at any angle in the camera sense and it looks good quality regardless. I can face it this way, I can make it face the other way towards, my hanger, my racks. You can see right here with all my jacket stuff. Yeah. Here's my PCs and everything. In that sense, the vibe that I go for is more of like a Japandi industrial vibe, a very kind of high in texture, high in nature. And I think to be grounded again, we gotta, like Ray said, walk outside. Being grounded in nature is the biggest part of being creative, in a sense.
Mm. Yeah, and MFG, you were just showing us something that you created. What is that?
Oh yeah, well, talking about texture, man. Texture it changes everything. I mean, this is just a prototype for some custom hardware that I'm making, like door handles essentially, but taking it from a piece of just flat steel and creating all the texture and depth. And I think there's something to be said for when you're creating your work environment. I hate to say it, but cheap stuff feels cheap.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And when something is plastic, as opposed to, and this is something that took me a long time to put value on, even the tools that I use. I mean, when you pick up something that is well made and that, God, it sounds like a fucking hipster, but that it's like made by someone. You know what I mean? Like there's a different weight to it. There's like
a spirit to it or something. Like it tells a story.
Yeah, like Robert Sapolsky talks about morphic resonance. You know what I mean? Like the idea that all matter has energy.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I cut you off. What is that term?
Dr. Robert Sapolsky talks about the concept of morphic resonance, that all matter has life to it, has energy to it, and that it stays within it.
Fascinating. Yeah, because I can completely relate. As I was getting yelled at by a person who shall remain nameless.
Ray.
Last weekend, I found myself exiting and just wanting to stroll through like different stores and everything, to get back to the project of building my office, and noticing how even down to the level of the light switches, you can change out the fixtures and you can put texture to it and weight to it. And so I did that, perhaps to run from my emotions. And I put that up on my office. And man, when I look at that little piece now, actually, no, the contractor brought that in. But when I look at that little piece, that light switch, it's just reminding me of quality. And it's reminding me of, hey, even down to the light switch, you can make it custom and intentional for you. So just fascinating stuff, man. Really fascinating stuff. Ray, final words of wisdom, my friend.
Yeah, stimulate the five senses, Think about what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're hearing, what you're tasting, what you're touching. And this like the real masters of interior design or artists or even chefs, right? Touch on or try to stimulate each of the five senses. And so when it comes to your environment, like, it's up to you it's up to you to make it a laboratory for success. So think about how you can inspire yourself with what you see. That means cleaning it up, first of all. Don't listen to Wes. You don't need that chaos. Make it beautiful. So make it clean and functional, then make it beautiful. Add textures for touch. Add cafe jazz in the background to keep to stave off the boredom for an extra 5 minutes each day while you're at your computer. Get a room diffuser at West Elm or wherever. Keep it smelling good. And that's your homework for the weekend, boys.
I mean, how beautiful can you make every inch of the day? And we didn't even talk about taste of like, man, I'm getting like more and more into matcha. I think Kyle and I share that affinity that we haven't had a chance to really dive deep into. But each of the drinks that we're probably drinking, it's like, hey, are you just getting that from Dunkin' Donuts, or are you actually thinking about what you're putting into your body?
And Wes, I know I already had my final remarks, but like,
yeah, I'm going to mute you.
Mike started off the conversation with like, and I'll paraphrase him, he was sleepwalking through life, even when he was at his most financially flush, spending maybe $40 on lunch, you can spend $200 a day and not be inspired. And so, I would encourage us to stop sleepwalking through life. And that doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire to have beautiful things, but just stop sleepwalking through how you live, where you live, and your environment.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of guys struggle with, and myself included at times, is being interesting. But I wonder how much of being interesting is actually putting in the under the water intention behind everything you do. Like it's always
it's better to be interested than interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Like,
and that's how you become interesting, by getting interested.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's not a single thing that I'm looking at right now that doesn't have a high quality alternative that has a story behind it. I mean, even if you look at a mass manufacturer like the Apple computer that I'm on right now, like, take a half hour and go look into the story behind Apple and Steve Jobs. It's just incredibly interesting. Or, hey, instead of drinking whatever tea or coffee you drink, how about you say, I don't have much money, but I'm going to go and try to find the absolute best coffee that I can, because that is like my small sliver of happiness throughout the day. So why not make it a level 10 for me? So yeah, I guess we hit on taste, and now I can see why, some people like going to high-end restaurants where they just give you like a piece of food that's the size of a nickel, I can understand if that's a very high quality nickel. MFG, what are your final words of wisdom, my friend?
Oh, my final words. I just want to show you guys what it looks like when I walk into the shop every day, just to show you that I live it too. What's up? So
Nice.
that's the giant mural. That's the shop door. But then the handle that you grab is handmade by my buddy out of
Love it.
patinaed steel. So, you know, it makes a difference when I show up at the shop and I grab that handle and this big piece of steel that's hand textured and look at the giant mural that took me hundreds of hours to do. I'm like, shit, this is where I create. This is in the same point with your environment, Wes. I think environments are important because for me, I want to have a place where I do the thing and then a place where I rest and a place, you know what I mean? And when I show up here, this is a space to create, and that's what I feel. And as soon as my hand touches that handle, okay, we're here. And the same thing for you. As soon as we'll hook you up with some real nice light switches and fixtures. You know what I mean? When you flip that switch and you feel that metallic and you feel that click, it's like, all right, it's time to fucking do business.
Yeah, I would imagine no different than what Ray's doing right now with his guitar in his hands. I imagine down to every single string, right? You could optimize that. And every time you pluck one of those strings, you could remember the story of like where it came from and who it made of you and so on. Kyle, what is your final words of wisdom, my buddy?
I'd say be present in the present moment, whether that be creating something, developing something, or just trying something. And then also the second one, I'd say get LED lights that can change color. That'd definitely be cool.
Awesome.
I can show you. I have my whole room that can change color.
Yeah, I need you to consult with me on that because we need to change some of the lighting here in the office. As you know, it's that white light that Ray's referring to. It feels like we're performing surgery of some sort. So anyway, all right, dudes. I love you guys. Have an outstanding weekend. Thank you for fighting by my side. Go out and get inspired. Later, dudes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Love you, Wes. Love you, boys. Bye-bye.